And go.
Go click.
Welcome to the Boiled Sports Handsome Hour. See, I've been trying to start an Anish right at the start of the recording so that there's no just go.
We should just go for
play
like
the
20
music.
minutes. You know what we have to do though? We really have to string this one out because there's not much content. I hope you asked people for comments, questions, limericks, all of these things because we're not going to have enough content for an hour here.
Yes, it's the Boiled Sports Handsome Hour. It's Jay. It's not Boiler Down. He
How
is.
dare you?
Sorry, it's Anish. Let's start
How
that
dare
again.
you?
Boiler Down is
Gallivanting.
out in Southern California. I can't say too much. He's filming. He's finally gotten
He's got a project.
part in him. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really the origin story of Gold's Gym. It was a stocky young man who insisted on lifting weights, and they kept telling him no. And finally, they said, "Okay, go over there by the sand and just leave us alone." And that's how
the
Gold's Gym
MCU is
started.
just taking over everything, isn't it?
It's the Boiler Down origin story.
Yeah.
Oh, we're off and running. Mo Hill 93 says they got to think Louisville's first call is Tom Allen.
Louisville's first call for what? I'm sorry.
I'm assuming he means the basketball coach because the basketball team is a shambles.
Ooh, buddy.
I actually did look that up recently. They lost their first three each by a point, and then they've gotten blown out of the water since then. They haven't gotten closer than like 20 points since then. So
yeah, it's not great.
I'm sad about it.
I thought that everybody insisted that this Kenny Payne guy who had brought all the CAA connections, everybody was gonna want to play with him. I thought it was gonna be no problem. Anyway,
got to get his guys in there. Just got to get his
seems
guys in
like
there.
new system, as they say.
So there's so much to talk about. We could talk about the Big Ten title game. That was exciting. That was
for
fun.
A little bit.
For a little bit. Yeah, and there's not much else. Much else is going on. Same coaching staff there's been the whole time.
Purdue should probably be ranked number 1, but they're ranked number 4, and we'll be okay with that for a while before we start yelling. But Purdue basketball.
Oh, basketball. Yeah.
That's good. I don't think Matt Painter is going to Missouri. That's great.
Something we've been worried about for about a decade.
I think we're good. Call Jimmy Hyams to make sure that everything is going okay on the Tennessee front. I think Tennessee's doing okay. They don't need a new coach. So I'm not sure what the big fuss is.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Today was a little strange. Today was strange. And I think the coaching stuff, like last time there was that long Brohm watch, right? Didn't it last? It felt like an eternity, but it was probably like a week. And
it was probably a couple, I think 4 days or so, 4 or 5 days, if I remember.
It can't really be that anymore because too much is happening, right?
Early signing period has. I mean, Louisville needs to have an answer.
The portal
on Purdue, the portal. I mean,
holy smokes! You look every time you open Twitter, there's another big name entering the transfer portal.
The next 6 weeks are basically going to be like just people going, scouting, like calls, everything like that. And so you need your coach. Either you need to know your coach is going to be there, or you need to know, who you're hiring. It's almost like a day one job. It can't be anymore. Like, like there is a little bit of acclimation time.
Right.
That is a little bit more relevant one way for the Louisville side, or I guess it's less relevant for Louisville because it seems like Jeff Brohm's not going to have to, if he takes the Louisville job, he's not going to have to learn the traditions or anything like that. Like he's not going to have to attend orientation. I don't know
that you need to learn traditions. I'm not sure Dion knows a whole lot about Colorado's glorious football tradition.
This one did. Handle Jones, as always. Handle makes me laugh. Handle Jones. Dion is in the buff. It's just simple and straight to the point. It's tremendous. It's very good. Just very good. Excellent job. 10 out of 10.
Did you watch the film of him addressing his team, telling him to hop in the portal?
And I wonder how different that is from what coaches usually say. Now, I think the weird part was probably the stuff that wasn't caught on camera, which was everybody in that room having to sign a waiver to be on camera. That's the weird part.
Did they really?
Yeah, because they're filming everything. Yeah, because that's what happened at
a lot of programs are filming everything.
But not for a documentary or whatever, like a social
the
media to
feature-length
be put
film's going
out.
to come out soon
Yeah,
about Dion.
exactly. So like,
Oh man,
I mean, and Kent State's head coach Sean Lewis, who might be relevant in the Purdue's upcoming week, left his job to go be Dion's offensive coordinator. I think
you
one
may
of
want to put
Mike's.
Dylan's comment up there. He says, "Oh no, did Dowd enter the portal?" he's out in Southern California. You never know. He
He's
might be
exploring his
transferring.
options.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
we know a prominent Pittsburgh wide receiver went to USC. So, a lot of people from the Midwest are exploring their options in warmer climates, basically, which I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Sorry, you were saying something about other coaches leaving. So
I don't know, but I saw Mitch Daniels to Louisville. It's a question lots of people are asking, Todd. Who knows? Who knows?
Oh, looks like Boiler Dad is listening. He says he'll explore our options. I bet you
All
would.
the options are open. He's gonna watch the film. He's gonna see. He's gonna talk to the coaches. Couple Zoom calls, and he's gonna figure it out. So Kent State's head coach left as Jay Money attends to his office mate. Kent State's head coach left to be the offensive coordinator. Not that you were listening. Don't worry about it, Jay Money. Um, I think Willie Taggart is going to be on Dion's staff. I think Mike Zimmer is going to be, formerly of the Vikings, is going to be his defensive coordinator. If Dion knows anything, it's named. So the coaching carousel is so strange, and in these times of strangeness, it is only stranger.
Yeah, and I think everybody's used to the fact that we always start off talking about something that has nothing to do with Purdue. But I fall down the rabbit hole of sports reference sites or Wikipedia, and because I get curious about things, and when Dion went to Colorado, I just kept thinking, man, that is a weird fit. It is a bad program. One of my thoughts, I'd like to get it out on the public record here, is Dion is not a guy who does things without thinking about it, I don't think, and he knows how it will benefit him. And I wouldn't be totally shocked if Colorado is one of those teams that's going to be moving to another conference. I wouldn't be surprised by it. Let's just put it that way.
Well, so I was wondering that, again, kind of reframing it for us. I was wondering if Dion wished that he would have waited a couple of days until Louisville opened, right? Because well, I don't think about that, but I think Louisville, a place like big metro area, big NIL, bucket, but you can't control the donors there. You can't control the athletic department right away, right? Unless you're the Brohm family, I suppose. I think Colorado is such a mess of an athletic program,
and they're like,
that anything goes. And if he fails there, the failure is like, I went to the worst. I tried. I took an FCS program. I took an HBCU from irrelevance to nationally relevant, pulling 5 stars. I went to the worst Power 5 job, that there was, which I think there is. I don't think it's even that arguable that historically this year's Colorado team may have been among the worst Power 5 teams ever. So if he takes that and goes to, if he fails, the failure is so low that it's like I took a house on fire and it burned, right? But if he builds him to fail, if he builds him to 6-7 wins, if he builds him to mediocrity, that's a success, and you can get Texas off of that if you're Dion. You know what I mean? It then turns the light to people who are taking statue jobs, and the risk becomes a little bit more. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, we've talked about this. I think, gosh, it's hard
just pull up our podcast from 5 years ago.
I was going to say,
4 years ago.
I don't know how much we've talked in the intervening time that was on the record like this, but I think it's fair to say that I felt for a while that if that job opened again, that we were going to lose him. And I think you, for a long time, made an argument that was based on cogent analysis rather than on emotion. You said the Big Ten and the SEC is where coaches want to be, and that's true. More money than anywhere else. I mean, even the bad SEC or Big Ten jobs are better than almost any other conference job. Particularly, well, I shouldn't say particularly because Louisville's now ACC, but the one thing that Brohm has proven he doesn't care about this stuff. He cares a little, but I think he cares more about like he. I unearthed I should have tweeted it. There was an interview he did in one of his like, he was at some school or some place in Louisville, I think, like a year ago or a little less than a year ago, and he was talking, and people captured it, and it got on the record. I think 40 wrote about it, and he admitted the stuff we all used to speculate, that he didn't leave Purdue when he had the chance. We all kind of pulled it together and said, well, this is the kind of guy who figures I've only been here a year. I got Rondell here. I haven't done what I was asked to do, so it's not the right time. He basically said all that. He said, they were good to me. I was only there a year. It was not the right time to consider this job. I mean, he said all the things you don't want to think about right now, because now he's been at Purdue 6 years. He took them from, as you've documented, the worst stretch in their history in 6 years to 4 bowls and the Big Ten championship game.
And that's not to say, like, all of the legitimate college football superstars that have come through, and inducted a quarterback into the cradle. I mean, like, and the most unlikely of the quarterbacks he coached into the cradle, right? And moments. I mean, like, we've had like big college, more than you could count. And again, if it happens, we'll do the whole retrospective and this and that. But like,
it's not through the eulogy yet.
Exactly. He's still alive. Grandpa's still alive. Okay. And so, but to your point, whether he comes back or not, next year is going to be a new chapter, right? It's going to, the AOC chapter is done.
Right.
The David Bell, George
natural
Karlaftis,
break point.
Rondell
Is that what
Moore
you're trying to say?
is done. Either way, next year, we knew next year would be a different chapter of Purdue football.
Right.
And you're hoping that it's Jeff Brohm that takes Purdue kind of into, like, ushers Purdue into that. But the risky thing now is, so again, the entire time you have been on, the next time it opens, it's going to be there. For me, it was a twofold argument. One was that Purdue is the anti-Louisville, right? Like, it's a Big Ten job instead of an ACC job. And I think the ACC is the next most unstable conference.
Really?
Because if the Big Ten or SEC expands, where the next like most, like, if you're ranking all of the valuable properties, where are all of the next ones? And they're all in the ACC. The next move is whenever Clemson decides to bolt for the SEC. Whenever Clemson decides the checks are just too big and we want to stay in this, our tastes have gotten, a little too rich, but we've gotten a little too used to it.
Well, let me ask you this, though. What about, I feel like, I don't know if I'm using the right expression, but the worm is turning a little bit potentially here, because...
Do worms turn?
Oh, that's what they say. I don't know.
The worms turn? People say worms turn? Interesting. I didn't know.
You know that expression.
I don't. I actually haven't, but I'll defer to I'll defer to the wisdom on this one.
Wisdom is is another word for old.
I wasn't
where's Handel? Handel will back me up. The worm turns. He'll back me up. And by the way, before I forget, I did see a good comment from Handel Jones in here. He said, so Purdue's football equivalent to the SEC is what? Mississippi State. We can talk about that more.
I would love to handle this question.
I think that's a fair comment. Let's get back to that just 1 second, because I just want to make one quick point before I forget. You talk about the ACC being unstable. You talk about wanting to be in the Big Ten and the SEC. You talk about Clemson saying, hey, we got to just eventually go to the SEC, and that being the domino. But doesn't TCU making the playoff, doesn't Cincinnati making the playoff, doesn't the fact that in 2 years the playoff's going to 12 teams, which means getting to the playoff might be easier at Louisville than at Purdue? I saw that argument made, and I think it's actually got a lot of merit. Now, that's if you care about that. Is that what you're coaching for, to get to the playoff? It brings a lot of money in. So,
but that's also assuming nothing else changes. Right? It's assuming nothing changes, nothing realigns, that none of the contracts are exclusive to Big Ten and SEC. It assumes that there isn't a cap on, like, it assumes that the college football playoff doesn't take the turn of, like, soccer, like FIFA, where, like, the World Cup, where there are a certain limited number of teams per continent that are allowed to get in.
Right.
It's like we keep talking about Super League. Where did the Super League idea come from? Super League was a thing that major soccer programs tried to do. Like
Right.
international
Right.
soccer programs tried to break domestic football and combine into this. Why
How
are
did
we
that go?
calling it this? Why are we calling it the Super? Well, it's because the fans rejected it. And if the
Oh.
fans do that here, they don't have that power. And so to me, it assumes sure the TCU argument, the Utah argument, the if the playoff were expanded, like the team that you don't want to see is Utah, right? Like
Oh
the
gosh.
argument that all of these teams are going to be waiting with bated breath assumes that nothing changes.
Right.
And to me, if anything, like you've got to assume that everything is going to be topsy turvy. You've got to assume that nothing that you're used to is on the table. And the only assumption that you can make is to thank your lucky stars that 150 years ago or whatever, Purdue ended up being one of the Big Ten teams, founding Big Ten teams, right?
Right.
And the Big Ten ended up being the one of the last two standing, or at least the two biggest, on the block right now. And that gulf, those $100 million a year checks to the athletic department are going to start weighing against, especially for Louisville, the NIL money that they can pull in. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the opposite side of that argument is that, well, if you're going to leave a Power 2 program for a non Power 2, you've got to make sure that you've got a long leash and the fan support and the booster support and the athletic department support is behind you 100%. And you've got to make sure that they have one of the best NIL machines that exist out there to even start to bridge that gap. And that's where you start to get worried because Louisville and Brohm cross off both of those, right? Everybody is going to be instantly behind him.
Mm-hmm.
The athletic department is going to give him 8 years no matter what.
Right.
Fans are going to give him 8 years no matter what. He's not going to flame out. Like I think it's pretty safe to say that he's not going to flame out like Scott Frost did at with his
No.
Nebraska homecoming,
No.
right? Like
I
he's going to
agree.
be more successful there. I think the kind of pass happy versus smash mouth football is the pass happy football is going to do a lot better in the ACC. There are no big roadblocks like Michigan, that are really in the ACC that can't be thrown over. So his
Mm-hmm.
style of offense is going to do better there. And oh yeah, Louisville just happens to be one of the programs that was paying players before you could, right? So it's safe to say that their NIL program is going to be a lot more developed. Um, and pair that with um, Brohm, it. You say he doesn't care about these things, like there are like that can go two ways, right? That can go in Purdue's way, which is like he's going to see this rationally. He's going to see this like the Big Ten. You're going to want to be in a Big Ten or ACC or sorry SEC program.
Right.
You're going to want to be there when everything is changing, and then maybe once everything settles out, you see where Louisville is, and then you go. Um, but then you can say it the other way, like none of this matters. He finished a chapter. He finished several chapters at Purdue, finished them all successfully, and now it's time to go home, regardless of whatever that means for success or whatever. Um, and it just is. It's a lot more persuasive than I would like it to be. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's why Carmen and it's why Newbert are all not operating from their usual positions, which is like, oh, let's wait, let's see, let's gather information. It's why they're already coming out and saying like, yeah, we would be shocked if he stays. We're just, or I should say, the way that they're phrasing this is we are assuming that they leave, or we're assuming that Brahms leaves and the position opens, right? Um, when it's smart guys like that, it's like that's not the side of the argument that you want to be on, right? So it's not great. It's not looking great for us, Purdue
I
fans.
mean, for those that I mean, I don't know how many people did see this, but Brian Newbert was asked directly this morning what his gut was if he was going. Actually, not this morning. I think it was after the press conference. He posted and he said his gut is that he's leaving. And that's not great because
It's not great.
Brian rarely says that kind of thing without
No.
knowing something. But he could be just talking about gut. But when does he ever just put out a gut feeling that he doesn't have
Yeah.
anything to back up? I mean, and maybe the stuff he has to back up is what you just described. Like that's home. It's the statue job, and we've talked in the past. Like I remember you saying 5-6 years ago, well, he can go to Louisville anytime. He might want to go elsewhere. He might want to go to a bigger job. He might want to go to the NFL. I don't know if he wants to go to those things. And it's been another 6 years. And you're now at a point where he's old enough that you could say, I'm going to go home for 6 to 10 years of coaching and then be the AD or then be done.
Then be done. And the other side of the coin that I was saying, like, the resources, facilities, the power two versus non-power two. The other side of the coin is you would think that, I mean, at this point, Louisville is a lower job than Louisville football is a lower job than Purdue football is, just because of the conference alignment. And so you'd think that the natural progression is up to the NFL or to Oklahoma or to one of those jobs. And then if that doesn't work out, Louisville will always be there. But to your point, like he's in general not that kind of guy, right? Like
Right.
he maybe at one point, but after the way that the Matt Rule thing went, I don't know if the NFL is going to come calling. And Oklahoma is probably the one where if that's the one that you're holding out for. But what are the odds exactly?
I
What
still think
what
it's
are the
further
odds that
away.
they?
I think he really likes to be physically not far from Louisville. As silly as that may sound to people, I know you can fly somewhere anytime. He can drive down 65 to Louisville. Not, when the car's not in the shop.
Yeah.
When
His car is in the shop. He can't go. He can't
go
go.
anywhere. What's he going to take a golf cart down to Louisville? Come on. Not going to drive that thing all the way down there.
That's what he's doing.
There's a bunch of things in the side here that we should be paying attention to. Ken says it's a career going backwards if he goes. We've already kind of covered that. That's very true like you just said, it's not as good of a job as being in a Big Ten program, but he's been there now. He's come to Purdue, which was Purdue the worst job in the Big Ten when he came in? It was, right? At the time?
I mean, yeah.
At the moment, they were the worst football program in the Big Ten.
They had the worst results in that time.
And Indiana was on the upswing.
Yeah.
And Northwestern was steadily churning out 10 wins every 2-3
Northwestern
years.
was great.
Right? The programs that had perennially been bad were not anymore. Even Illinois, who Darrell Hazel could beat, was still scraping together more wins than Purdue was, and continues to knock on the door with Burt. So he took that program and spent 6 years there. I think a lot of us, a lot of you guys who are old, 6 years flies by. That's a long time. That's longer than either of the previous two coaches were there. It's the longest anybody's coached at Purdue since Joe Tiller. So I'm not saying I'm ready for him to go. I'd like him to sign another, extension and be there a good 10 years. Because now I want him to rebuild this, but what I want isn't always what I get. What else do we got over here? There were a few things that you guys do. They were talking about the playoff and saying, Mark Garrity a little while back said, we're in the Big Ten, and if we have 9 to 10 wins, we could be ranked in the region of, I think he was referring to getting into the playoff once it's expanded. I do love when people talk about 9 to 10 wins in the regular season, something that's literally happened one time ever. But I do agree that, so someone posted, and it might have been Fornelli or one of those people, they said if Purdue beat Michigan on Saturday night, and maybe it was if North Carolina beat Clemson. There were two.
North Carolina beat. Yeah.
He said, here's what the expanded it could look like. And he put Purdue at 12. Now, that's maybe if Purdue beats Michigan, they're ranked if that happens. I don't know if they're 12.
No, but if you – so the point is –
being the West winner could then be 12.
No,
because you'd win the championship.
Because you'd win the Big Ten. You'd win the Big Ten. You get the auto bid. Again, you have to put on your basketball hat here. You win the tournament. You get the auto bid, and you're in. And Purdue would be the worst one in there, so they'd be 12. But that would be awesome.
But did you see what it meant? It meant they'd play Michigan again.
Which is hilarious.
LOL. Yeah. I mean, I think they'd probably try to avoid that, but
but that's the point. Like,
you could get there. You can get to the top 12 at Purdue.
What are the top 12 meaning? Like you gotta to make the playoff, right? Where are most of the playoff teams going to come from? It's going to be Big Ten and SEC programs. That being said, like if the if nothing changes, sure, the ACC is in a strong position. The
I
ACC is one SEC hissy fit away from not existing anymore.
I mean, if the
Like
SEC decides to pluck a few of them or something,
the two most valuable brands on the board right now are North Carolina and Clemson.
right? Take them both.
Both are
Then
natural
doesn't Duke
SEC
doesn't
fits.
Duke then want to go for basketball? But
Who
I guess
knows?
they could go
Who
play football. They went 8-4 again this year. I mean, they'd be
Elko?
better than
Yeah,
Vanderbilt. They'd be better than
and,
Vanderbilt.
and you get
Um,
it's a valuable brand. You get
so
the
we got way off track off of Handel's question of is Mississippi State the Purdue comp in the SEC? Someone else then commented, and maybe you'll find it, maybe not, but I'll just say it. One of them commented and said, Purdue is Kentucky. That's an interesting comp. I don't mind that one.
no, we're not yet.
No,
Sorry.
we're not yet. Is that what you said?
Yeah, no. You know who Kentucky is? I'm sorry. Kentucky is who Kentucky's coach is trying to build them into, which is Iowa. They're always freaking there. They're just always consistent. That's who Kentucky is.
That's what
They're
Brohm's
boring.
building.
No, but to be fun, that's different. Fun and stable. So, who is there an SEC program that's there? I don't know, but Ole Miss
Kentucky's somewhat fun. Oh, Mississippi State and Ole Miss are fun. Mississippi State is fun
now,
because of Weirdo's offense.
now,
Right now they are.
yeah,
Right.
and so same with
Right.
Lane, right? I mean, Ole Miss is there. It's really tough because you've got to find it where I mean, like the Indiana recruiting is not as good as as Ohio or Michigan, right? In terms of football recruiting, like in terms of just the
Mm-hmm.
geography. So you've got to think about that. Are we considering
Portal, baby.
Mizzou an SEC team? No, really, right? But like, because then there's the black and gold, there's the good offenses, there's the weird, I mean, the geographic fit is
The
different,
weird fit. Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
you're looking at the weirdos of the conference. So yeah, Mississippi State, I think makes sense.
The weirdos of the conference. I mean, Purdue's a founding member. They're not weirdos, man. We put a scare into everybody. That's what they're there for.
It's
Purdue
stylistic
exists.
weirdos, not necessarily like historical, right?
And it isn't getting any easier. So Wisconsin makes a great hire in Fickle. I think we all agreed that was a great hire.
All of that. By the way, if we have one takeaway from
Mhm.
all of this, it's that all of this is Wisconsin's fault because
Yes.
they took Luke Fickle, they opened the Cincinnati job, and then Pandora's box was opened.
And I don't think the Cincy fans, and I don't totally blame them. I mean, Fickle to Satterfield is not exactly
Well,
what you want.
offline, I have been bringing up this scenario that Satterfield leaves
Yes.
rather than gets fired
Yeah,
for
you
a
should have put
while.
this out publicly because you
I
called this.
did in the last podcast before you came on. Not that you
Oh, you
listened
did?
to the
Okay, good.
podcast
I
anyway.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
before
I
you
don't
came
listen.
on,
I'm
I did.
not
But
on. I don't listen.
I know. But like I put it out there, but I thought it was going to be West Virginia that did it. Like West Virginia, because I figured Cincinnati would open up sooner or later, but Cincinnati's a better job than West Virginia. And you would think that Cincinnati could pull one of these better options, but it seems
Do you
like
think it's
they
a better
didn't
job
even
than West Virginia?
I think Cincinnati is a good, if you're not going to be, I would rather be Cincinnati in the Big 12
West
than
Virginia in the
West
Big 12?
Virginia. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at where you're recruiting to, look at the athletic department, look at the history of it. Like, you know, I would much rather be Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's a much better job. And so to me, like, you could attract really good fun. You could probably have attracted someone like Tom Herman. Now, my thoughts on Tom Herman are quite clear, but like, you could attract a better candidate than Scott Satterfield, which is why I didn't think it would be Cincinnati that pulled him. Um, I thought it would be somewhere like West Virginia, but like the way that this ended makes a lot of sense to me, or the way that the Louisville job opens makes a lot of sense to me. Anyway, this is all Wisconsin's fault, by the way. But
Wisconsin.
you
Yeah,
were saying it
Wisconsin.
doesn't get any easier because Wisconsin
Wisconsin, and then
hired.
Rule at Nebraska, and then Lincoln Riley's joining the Big Ten.
Yeah,
and so's Chip Kelly.
this is
Whee!
this is where, see, the other part of this is like, this is where you go to play the best, right? And I've heard lots of people saying this. Osterman said this when he came on the podcast, was when you're recruiting people, it is really attractive to say you're going to play the big brands. You're going to play, Michigan. You're going to play Ohio State. so like you can really show them up. For if you're Purdue, you can show like, the spoiler makers, you can show the Dragon Slayers, you can show like, Purdue beating all of these folks on big on big stages and superstars taking over. That's how you can recruit to it. But like that's not none of that, we all bring that up, but none of that is what Brohm is going to make his decision on,
Nope.
right? It's just going to be whether he wants to go home, whether
Yep.
he and his family want to go home. Like
Yeah.
none of it matters. We can talk about like that's why when Louisville also had a press conference today, and Louisville's athletic director said, I don't know if I'm going to hire a search firm. You know why? Because he knows who his number one candidate is. His agent lives down the street. If that
Yep.
falls through, yeah, he's probably going to hire a search firm because
But
he's
this
going to have
can't
to go on
take
back
long,
channels.
right? It cannot take long because the agent's right down the street. Brohm knows, like you said, Brohm doesn't need to do any recon on Louisville, right?
Yeah.
His family still lives there. He still owns a home there. He knows whether it's a job he would want. So it's really a matter of, yeah, the numbers got to be right. I don't think he's going to take a, many $1 million hit just to go there. I mean, I think they need to, do right by him there, but I don't think there's going to be doubt they would do that. I think they would pay as much as they humanly could for him. So to me, this is like, for those of you, and we're included in this, kind of thinking about this a lot throughout the day. I don't think it's to take more than a day or two. I really don't. I'm kind of surprised we haven't heard something definitive today because
we make fun of him, but like Pat Forty is the most plugged in Louisville national writer, and that's basically what he said, right? Which was like within 24 hours we'll know. And if it extends beyond that, then something strange is happening. But like by the end of tomorrow, like I would be surprised if we didn't know one way or another. I am I am still kind of if J Money is on the side that he was always going to go for ever since the uh, uh, the next time that he was going to be offered the job. I am still on the side that like logic, is like that Purdue is a better job, but it does not seem great for us. And so, yeah, it looks like J Money lost the chat here. I can still see J Money. I
but
can
you
still
could
see
still
you.
see
So,
me and hear
yeah, I
me.
can still see the
Okay.
chat.
I got a
But
thing that said yeah. So I lost everybody's. This saddens me because I'd much rather see what you all have to say than listen to a niche. You understand?
we could do this
Oh,
view, but
new
this is
comments with
danger.
this.
This is
Oh,
dangerous.
they'll actually be in the stream. That's not any more
Exactly.
dangerous. Normally it's right next to us.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Is anything just? I'm still not seeing anything. I think because my stupid. Oh no,
Yeah.
there we go.
See, so it'll
There we
come.
go.
It'll come.
Um,
But
oh, man.
I just don't know. I don't know, and I don't feel great about it. And you shouldn't feel comfortable if you're a Purdue fan, because this is, everything is kind of working against you, and you're really just hoping that Brohm sees that this is the anti Louisville, right? It's a little bit more stable. It's a little bit, the you don't have to worry about the athletic department. It's less insane. The facilities or the infrastructure is just going to be like the gap between power two and non-power two is just going to get wider and wider and wider. There's no path for Louisville to get there. I don't think that they're getting a SEC bid. I don't think they're getting a Big Ten bid. So there's no path for them to get there to make that up. But again, all of this is like, does it really matter? Like it this isn't the argument that you're doing. Like, I doubt that Babinski is even making an argument. Like, Babinski is probably like, hey, like an 8-year contract
You
is
know what we
here
think
for
of
you.
you. We
Yeah.
know what we think of you. You know
We've
we
had
want
6
you,
years to prove it. Like, right?
and we
Like,
have, and we don't want. You're exactly right. He doesn't. There's nothing he can do. It's not like he can say, "We'll give you a raise." He can say that, but that's not what this is about.
and the other part of this is and I would also like to address this part again. Not that it's gonna matter for the greater population, but like the Mitch Daniels leaving part also. Um, I think there is Mitch right now for athletics has been a great president. I think there is a lot of revisionist history happening as to how good of a president he was to athletics, because his original his first 3 years, his original decision was that athletics was not getting a dime. He was anti it. And it, again, to his credit, when he saw how far that backfired, how
Right.
wrong of a decision that was, it was Babinski and it was the Berghoff,
Berghoff. Yeah.
the board of trustees that was there to persuade him
Mm-hmm.
to really that it was really worth investing, that athletics is one of the major ways that you draw talent and you draw eyes to the program. It's one of the best ways to market the program, and it's the source of pride that brings all people, all Purdue fans and alum together, um, and kind of draws that money in and draws the alumni support in. And so I don't think that Daniel's leaving. I know that there's the story about, I mean, like when, Mitch Daniels kind of closing, Brohm, staying the last time. That was kind of the closer that they brought in, which is great and all of that is
Right.
awesome. But I don't think that the commitment to like Purdue's commitment to athletics changes with Daniels leaving, because first of all, they're picking Daniel's kind of handpicked successor, somebody that I'm sure, speaking of stepping stone jobs, like Mung Cheng is going to leave to be like the Cal systems, the UC systems president or Stanford's president after Purdue, after like 5-10 years at Purdue. Like he's going to MIT's president. Like he's a rising star. By the way, 45 years old. Like he was a rising academic star. He was a rising star in engineering research. He's 45 years old and he's going to be the president of Purdue. And so really it's just going to be like, he's got people that Daniel's trusted. He got people that he knows, like between Berghoff and Babinski. Those are the people that you need to be, that
Mm-hmm.
you need to be, paying attention to. And to me, that stability is still there. So I don't think the Daniels thing really has that much of an impact. Again, I don't think that anything has that much of an impact. I think it's just like, does he want to go home?
Yeah. There have been some comments going by the side. Some people have talked about Brian Brohm. Somebody said, so right now someone over there says, does Brian Brohm maybe go to Louisville? I don't know if Boiler Bugle
Oh,
there means instead of him.
I would prefer that. Yeah, that would be I think Brian would be a great candidate.
And someone else earlier said, do you think that he would stay at Purdue as a coach? I don't think so. I think if
No,
Jeff goes, Brian
no,
goes. Yeah.
absolutely not, guys. What are you talking about? What do you think
That was
this
an earlier
is?
comment. We don't even have to.
Yeah.
What else do we have? You can ignore that one from Dowdy Dowd. Todd 16. Todd, you're just being silly. He says if Brohm goes, Purdue should turn to Jeff Saturday. That's a great.
Hey, man, you've got to ask the
Working so
question.
well. You
How
got
do
a
you
guy.
know?
Hey, Anish, he's got experience now.
You've never had you will always remember that 1 week that he did really well. It's
Against
great.
the Raiders, wasn't it?
Yeah, terrible.
Terrible.
Jeez, what a joke. What
What does
joke
South
of a
Haven Boiler
program.
there say? Do you think someone asked Brohm about basketball? What does that say?
Which one?
Someone, because it disappeared. Now I can't scroll back and see him. When it bothers him. No, I do not think. So the question is, does he think someone asking around with the basketball team during the presser after winning the West press conference
I think
bothers
that
him? No.
I think he loved it.
He loved it. He genuinely, this is the thing we I think talked about last week. He genuinely really likes Purdue basketball. We've seen him at Purdue games off of Purdue's campus. He
Same thing with
and
Shondell.
Painter,
Like he's been at Shondell's games. Like he's been at the
yes,
volleyball games.
he
too.
likes
Like
this whole thing, and he likes supporting other programs. He knows how important that is. Shondell gets that. Painter gets that. You have a lot of good coaches right now in the system who get it and who genuinely like each other's programs. They pay attention. They actually like them. So no, I don't think that's a negative. I think, if anything else, and I think Handel asked a question about Paint having an impact. I don't think Painter has much impact on him. I mean, he's one of the few people that Brohm could probably talk to about this and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking.
But a lot of this is actions more than words, right? Like you just see a guy that wants to be at Purdue that has that job until he doesn't want it anymore. I mean, that's Painter, right? Like
kind of both of them.
you see an athletic, but that's what I mean is like Brohm. It's actually Louisville, as much as it is like an unknown, or as much as it is a known quantity for him. He grew up at Louisville. He played at Louisville. He coached at Louisville. like he's Louisville royalty, it's actually kind of more of an unknown than Purdue, because
Mhm.
he knows that this is going to be his next 10 years if he wants it, right? Like he can look at Painter and just see like, that's it. So, um, the impact that Payne has on this is like he sees what this could be. He sees that it's a patient program, that there's not much media spotlight on this. There's not much booster like mutiny or anything like that. Like you'll get as much time as you need because you've already proven yourself, right?
And Greg said something. Greg McManus said something in there where he said, and basically, backing up what you just said, the Brahms love Purdue. They just might love Louisville more.
That's it. That's
That's
it.
right. This is not, and I hope Purdue fans are, semi-rational about this if this happens. But I don't think this is a repudiation of Purdue. I don't
No,
think that would ever be the case here. This is not Satterfield leaving Louisville. If this
no.
happens, this is a guy going home and nowhere else. I mean, we've said this for the last couple of years, basically since he didn't leave the last time, because his name was not only mentioned for Louisville, his name was hot after that first season at Purdue,
Oh yeah.
right? And he didn't, to our knowledge, entertain many. I'm sure he took I'm sure his agent took a few calls. I believe we were pretty
I
confident he
mean,
heard from Tennessee,
Tennessee
but
was the one, yeah. But that was
but
after the search had already gone off the rails, right?
right. I think we're at a point where the only one he leaves for is Louisville, and for personal reasons, for home reasons. That's it. That's it. So again, that is not a knock on Purdue. And one of the things, I think Anish and I shared this story when we were at the dreadful Purdue Rutgers game at
12 to
Rutgers.
14, 14 to 12, just tremendous.
Beforehand, there was a Purdue tailgate like that we went to, and Babinski was speaking, and Berghoff was there, and we decided, because we're very charming, we just decided to go up and talk to Berghoff, and really just to say, because this was shortly after they had retained Brohm, I believe. I think this was maybe year two. Um, and we just were like, hey, we just wanted to say we knew you were instrumental in that, and we appreciate that you did that. And Berghoff said, look, I was tired of sucking. I was tired of us being bad, and 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 we decided we wanted to do something about it. And he said, you know what, we did retain him, but even if we didn't, or even if he does leave eventually, he said we're gonna go after the right guy after that. And it was just a great answer too, because it wasn't like, don't worry, we're gonna hold on to him. It was, yeah, we're gonna try to, but even if that doesn't work out, that's not gonna be the end. We're gonna find the next good guy. And I think that's a great mentality to have. It's especially necessary right now in college football.
I
Um,
mean, it's what we didn't have 6 years ago, which was a foundation. I mean, how many
mhm,
times was I trying to bang that gavel, which is like, the coach only matters but so much. But if it's built on, nothing, like you can only be so successful. And the thing about like the thing that was so um we're not Penn State. We're not Ohio State. We're not Michigan. We aspire to be where Wisconsin is, right? We aspire to be where Michigan State was, right? And that's
mhm,
attainable. I think that's absolutely
mhm.
attainable for a program like Purdue.
It's on
And
its way.
what you need to do that is not a Joe Tiller hire. Joe Tiller was, after a series of spectacular failures at Purdue, and we just happened to roll the right dice, right? Right? You just happened to
Oh
roll the
yeah.
right combination, and that
It was
papered
another Morgan
over
Burke budget hire,
that
and it
papered
worked.
over so many foundational holes that Purdue had, which we all knew, right? Meanwhile, is building non-revenue facilities, like non-revenue, high revenue athletic facilities and things like that, which is good, which is paying off now, which is great. But that's not the foundation of the football. That's not the foundation of what a Power Five and now Power Two athletic program can be. That answer to your point, Jay Money, that Berghoff gave to us, that is the foundation, right? That
Mhm.
is using Brom as the tip of the spear, and tip of the spear is only as good as the rest of the spear itself. If you just got the tip of a spear, it's just poking you on the side. There's nothing, right? You know what I mean? It's gone. It's a pinprick,
Getting
and you're done.
extremely literal with this.
It's done. You're done. And so to me, like that was the comforting part of this. And that's, if we're looking for, if we're looking for silver linings in this instance, whereas last time I was pretty confident that he was coming back. It was a rational confidence, but, um, we say that he was only here 1 year, 2 years, or whatever before, Louisville offered him the gig. You know why he stayed is because he, a Louisville guy, convinced another basically Louisville guy, superstar in Rondale Moore, to come to Purdue, and he wasn't about to abandon him. That was it. You know what I mean? And everything
Yeah.
else was like window dressing and like reasons to stay and the salary and the, the Big Ten and competitions and all of this. Really, like, he recruited a superstar and he told him he was going to be there and he couldn't go back on his word. That's also what makes him real weird. That's also what makes him real different because, Bobby Petrino, the guy that he learned from, wasn't going to do that. Um, you know, like you scroll through, like Scott Satterfield isn't going to do that. Like throw a dart and hit a college football coach, and they're not going to think like that. And that's what makes Brohm different. And that's why this moment is a little dangerous because none of the logic matters, right?
So a couple people, there's a couple quick comments that I saw in there. I just didn't want to forget to address. I think it was Nolan. I forget Nolan Hostetler.
Yeah.
He had a couple questions there. One was around whether Brohm is really the top candidate because he said it seems like the fans are a little divided. Look, Louisville fans. Let me just address this one quick. They're a little nuts. I mean, that's a rabid, aggressive, angry fan base. I mean, I'm just going to say that's what they are. Everyone I've ever interacted with is really not very pleasant. And so if you're seeing some bitching, it's because they still feel jilted from a few years ago. But here's what I will I will challenge you with. Do you see any other candidates' names being floated? Seriously, maybe here and there, but nobody repeatedly. That's the guy they want, whether those fans want him or not. They know he knows Louisville. They know he'll be there as long as, maybe not forever, but he'll be there a long time. He's not going to sign up and then be poached in 2 years. That's not going to happen. And then the other thing, it might have been Nolan, but I've lost track now who said this, but someone made a great point. They said, if it's going to happen, I want it to happen so Purdue can move on and not be stuck with whatever's available. That's a great point too. But here's what I'll say to try to make you feel better for those of you worried about that. You mentioned earlier that Babansi's probably not even making much of a pitch. He's probably simply saying, hey, Jeff, you know what we think of you. We want you here, but please let us know sooner or later, not sooner than later, what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I am sure if they have an inkling, or even if they don't have an inkling, there's feelers out. They know who they would approach, right? They go to Kleiman's agent. They go to whoever's agent they would talk to, and they say, hey, there's a chance this guy's going to bolt. We really like your guy. Just want you to know that so that if this happens, we can do this quickly. They all get how it works. So I would tell you that there's no doubt that I have faith is what I will say. You can't say no doubt, but I'll tell you I have faith that Babinski is doing the right things behind the scenes.
I guess we got to put up this guy's comment because it's a good point. This guy.
Boiler Dad says, in the words of a friend of mine, Louisville's fan base is a mess, but might be Brahm's mess. Kind of like knowing your family's issues.
That's it. I mean, that's it, right? Like Scott Satterfield, a good coach. Like, he is a good coach that probably would have done fine if Jeff Brohm didn't exist at Louisville, right? If he didn't have to hear Jeff Brom's name over and over and over.
He didn't do that badly.
And he was about to bring in Louisville's best ever recruiting class. He was weeks away from inking Louisville's best ever recruiting class.
You called it. I don't blame him for saying, you know what, fuck this.
And he left because Louisville is a mess, and Brohm is attracted to it, to Dowd's point, because it's his mess. He knows it. He grew up in it. It's like Bane in the darkness. It's like, you merely adopted the darkness. This is my darkness. What do you think? You think I can't handle this? And so, it's just if he wants to go. That's it. And to that point, it's like, 100% Babinski has already put out feelers and, knows who the short list is.
Anish, Boiler Bugle has a comment I feel like you should address. He said he's late to the party. Did we talk about Carmen leaving Journal and Courier?
Man, shout out to Carmen. Shout out to our guy, Carmen, taking the buyout, taking my way out. Just take the money and go. Leave, man. Leave Gannett. What a sinking ship that so many people are tethered to because it's journalism is a good service to do. And Gannett is vultures. What a terrible business model there they have.
What's bad, though, is there's no beat writer.
There's no beat writer. That's, hey, Zach Osterman, go cover a Brohm press conference while you're covering Purdue IU basketball. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you want to cover a winning program? There you go.
Yeah.
Carmen to Boiled Sports, Kevin Spry says, yeah, I thought about that, Kevin. We thought about making him an offer, but he probably I think
He
that
already
is
took a buyout, so you never know. He could come cheap, right?
right.
He's got his bills paid, and so
Carmen was very good. He was
he's
good to have
great.
around.
Shout out Carmen, and I hope he ends up at a Purdue. I hope he ends up somewhere where he can still write about Purdue. But yeah,
It'd be super nice to have a journalist who's not somewhat attached to the university covering this whole
oh,
story.
yeah,
Everything just went dark. The Twitter feed stopped updating. Nothing was posted on Gold and Black. Like just there's nothing to say. Just keep us all in the dark. That's the way to calm everybody down.
and that's
So
the thing. And like, there's that they reported a 3 o'clock meeting today, and then did not follow up on what that was
nothing.
about, which was again, fine, but also like, man, is that a way to just put like, have Purdue's fans' imaginations, go wild?
Boiler Max said, "Are you guys going to talk coaching candidates?" And he's not the first one in this
I don't
chat to
like I
ask.
don't like him. I don't like to do that kind of thing.
I don't. There's no opening. There's no opening
Yeah,
to
what
discuss
opening?
candidates for.
The volleyball coach is doing really well. The basketball coach is doing really well, and the football coach just won a title. So what are we talking about here?
He won a title. We didn't even talk about the game. I guess there's no need to, except to say that
They
Chuck
fought, man.
Sizzle, who apparently isn't one of the best receivers, um, has the Big Ten championship game records, I believe, for
For
yards and
yards.
receptions.
Is
Yeah,
it the recept? Did he get
I thought it was
receptions too?
both. I thought it was
That's
both.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
And he didn't make kind of Big Ten receiver of the year over Marvin Harrison, despite outgaining him in every category. Again, Marvin Harrison Jr., excellent receiver. We're not saying that, but it's like look at Chuck's lines, and he was the one. So, oh geez, their fight in that first half was
I
like
was very
that
proud
was
of this team.
awesome.
I
Oh,
was
it
very
was
proud of
so
this team.
good, and that's the thing is like now we're backing our way into like consolation prizes and happy to be there things. And it's like Michigan is
I
the
don't.
only team in the country that can stand up to Georgia. Michigan's awesome. Like, let's not pretend that Michigan was there by accident, right?
Brohm's team didn't play like they were happy to be there. They
No.
played. They played hard. They played to win. They did. I don't think for a half, at least a half, maybe longer, but definitely longer. You can't ask the defense, that Purdue defense from this year, to do much more than they did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 14-13 at the half. I would say so. Purdue had a touchdown and 5 field goals. So if
Toward
you
the end of the game, those field goals were a little bit maddening, but like,
take
it is what it is.
2 or 3 of those, and a couple of them you can agree should have been touchdowns, and Purdue got down to like the 10 and then took like a
Oh
penalty.
yeah.
Like let's say 3 of them are touchdowns. That's 12 more points. Now you're not winning, but again, changes the complexion of the game considerably if those are touchdowns and not field goals. Purdue very easily could have had a lead at halftime. So I was very proud.
I think should have had a lead at halftime.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
should have. Now
I
they
would,
didn't. They didn't do the thing that they've been doing all year, which is letting that last like just before half demoralizing touchdown in. But like, so they should have had it. They had the ball inside the res or inside the 30, like
but
6
did you see
times. I mean,
so Joe Ensley says Purdue has many scoring drives as Michigan. Purdue, yeah, that's true. They had what, 6 scoring drives. They were in the red zone, I think 6 times, and not only that, they had more first downs than Michigan. They had more time of possession. Like that's actually, again, that's not how the game is counted, I realize. But, they did not play like they were just happy to be there. They played hard. They played a few more, the talent gap is there. I mean, that's what happens, right? Like you said, that's a really good team.
well, and it's the
out.
It's the stylistic gap because strangely enough, this year's Ohio State team kind of plays closer to the USC Purdue style of things, right? And they got their clocks cleaned. Every Michigan fan that I just happened to follow was like, wow, Purdue put up more of a fight than Ohio State did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like it's similar styles, and if styles make fights, Purdue put up a better fight with the same style, and that's something you can, when we're talking about Ohio State, a team in the playoff, the number 3 team in the country, like these are building blocks that you can work with, right? Yeah, maybe this year would have been the one year where the BCS would have been better than the playoff, than a 4-team playoff, I should say. But because we know the two teams that should be there,
I
but the
I
BCS
was
sucked. Let's not
the
let's not
BCS sucked.
let's not
I'm
reverse this
happy.
like the BCS was bad.
This is going to sound so weird. I'm happy that Ohio State is in because it makes people angry. Because I have no horse in this
Who
race.
cares? Yeah.
So right. So the fact that it pisses people off, and you got Tennessee fans out here being like, "Why was Alabama ahead of it?" You know what I loved seeing the whole week was
Saban grovel.
Tennessee. Well, Tennessee beat Alabama. Why is Tennessee behind Alabama? And I felt compelled to actually point out to a few people that Tennessee gave up 63 points to South Carolina. How do you I love the arguments people make, and they only focus on the couple of things that they think support their argument, which I realize is how everyone argues about everything. But
To the internet. Let me introduce you to the
my
internet.
gosh,
my
is
friend.
that hilarious? like you're just gonna overlook that South Carolina just destroyed you and put up 63 points and say, wow, but we beat Alabama on a last-second field goal at home. And then we tore down the goalpost and tried to make the fans pay for it.
I am fine to Dowd's point here, 16 playoff. I like 12. Like, let's make the conference titles a part of this. Like, the conference title games a part of this. Like,
Always wanted expansion. And maybe I'm becoming an old man, but in the last couple of years, I have come away from that because there has not been a good 14 playoff yet. The secret is not putting more teams in.
But you're not trying to get. You're trying to extend the fun, right? You're not trying to, because the other alternative we have is more meaningless bowls. Bowls are bad. I'm sorry. Like, bowls right now.
Point.
Bowls are bad. They are the alternative. They are entirely meaningless for people that can leave.
They
Like,
were,
if you can leave, there's no upside for you playing the game. Do not play the game. It's almost like a spring scrimmage. It's closer to a spring scrimmage than it is a postseason like we were used to, which is why expand it so that more people can play more real games. And then we come off the small fine print of like, hey, if you want players to play in them, why don't we pay them a fraction of what the coaches get paid to make a bowl game? Not even the bowl payout, right? Because how many millions of dollars did Jim Harbaugh make, winning against Ohio State, winning the Big Ten championship, and making the playoff, right? I think he got $2 million just based on that. So it's like, yeah, I think the argument that bonuses for participation is,
that's a different argument, though. Making the bowl season more meaningful is a valid argument. However, I've come around on the idea that it does water down the meaningfulness of the regular season because Ohio State, Michigan. I was just going to make a point. Ohio State, Michigan becomes less of a knockout game, but it turns out it wasn't a knockout game anyway because
it's not a knockout game anyway. Yeah,
well, that's because it would have been if USC had won.
So, but the other parts of this is if and when Big Ten divisions go away, one plays versus two for the Big Ten title. Make that, by the way, a playoff game. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Handels just raised this, and this is if you expand it to 12, don't we need to get rid of conference championship games? Potential college football champions may play 15 to 16 games a season. Now, yeah, I mean, right now they're playing 15, aren't they? They're playing 12, 13. Yeah, they're playing 15 right now. Right now. So, I mean, it's not that different, which is how they've justified it. Absolutely, you should get rid of conference championships, except that they're going to now make the conference championships matter, which if you're going to have conference championship games, see, there are people out there saying, let's say Purdue had won. They don't belong in there. Hey, if your conference has decided.
You play to win the game.
Well, but it's the same. You made the point earlier. It's just like the NCAA tournament. If the worst team in your conference, and it happens, especially in the smaller conferences, wins the conference tournament, they get the bid. Now, that is very imperfect, but many people feel the imperfection of that is what makes it beautiful. You've earned it. You're playing well at the time. We talk about that all the time. The team you don't want to play, the team that's hot at the moment. It happens in other professional sports where it's the team that's hot and gets in. Baseball all the time, a team that gets hot. The Phillies make the World Series. So if you don't like that, and you think it should be based on who dominated all year, they should get in because they dominated all year, then you're more of a fan of like the Premier League model where it's like, well, it's like regular season is what matters. You're the champ.
And then let's just do regular season.
Then do it that way. And do away with the title games. Save everybody that game of wear and tear. Give everyone another week off, and then start the playoff. I'd be completely fine with it. And you know why else? I said this on Twitter. Even though you can argue Purdue was not the right matchup, they won their division. Okay, you got divisions. This is what divisions mean. What I hate is these big, like TCU lost to the second place team in their Big 12 championship game. They won the Big 12 and then had to play a team they'd already played and beaten and lost them.
It's the
That's
point
stupid.
It's the point that you're making, which is in basketball, the tournament, even when it was 64, is big enough to take in both the regular season champion and the contingency, just in case Kemba Walker goes off and UConn wins the Big East tournament, right? And so, like with the college football playoff, it's sacrifice. So, like you're cutting off a pretty good team for that, but that pretty good team is 12th. And if that's the team that gets cut off, sorry. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, it's not like Alabama is going to be fine with Georgia, right?
Boiler Dads, 6 is what I advocated. If you search the BS archives, I advocated
6 is better than 4
many years ago.
Gosh.
4 because you do 2 teams get a bye, and then you have the other 4 play. You make 1 and 2 still super valuable. Then the other ones have to play to get you down to 4. Boom, we're done. Nobody can argue if they're 8th or 7th or whatever. Like, you can argue all you want, but you weren't in the top. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be somebody, and this is what they've said about the tournament. They've talked about expanding the NCAA tournament to 96 or 128. Then if you do that, the 97th team is going to be like, how were we left out? That's rude.
How dare you? We got the chat bots. So what happens when the thing here, where is it? Yeah, Boiled Sports After Dark was right here. I try to filter those out, and then the chat completely goes away. So it's not great.
So we have to let them in, is what you're saying?
We have to let them in, all of them. We have to let all of them in.
Oh, Boiler Max brings up scrapping pre-New Year's, but I'm not even reading your comment, Boiler Max. You're just making me – thank you for making me think of the other stupid thing I want to rant about. Another thing that grinds my gears is having the playoff games at 8 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Now, New Year's Eve, let me be clear, is a stupid holiday that that there's no point – it's just another night. Okay, the calendar changes. It's absurd that you're going out and partying. When you're 21, 25, fine. Have a great time. Those of you who are more like me, you understand that there's nothing better than just kind of relaxing on New Year's Eve. So maybe the argument is there to play an important game that night. But somebody's always having people over, or we could have a few drinks, or we should do this. And then you're trying to watch playoff football. Like,
let's not even get on. Let's not even get on from the watcher, from the TV people's point of view. When do you think more people will tune into your game? On the 30th? When they probably just flew into wherever they're celebrating New Year's, or like people are kind of gathering together, they're going to be in bars. It's kind of the night before the night. So there's that kind of magic that's there. Or you're hanging out with friends or everybody, or you're just like, it's just another day and you've got the game on. Or the first, when you're hungover, when it's just days before
work.
First
is a great day
like Sunday
for a big college football game.
What are we like? What bozo college or cable executive decided that it was going to be on the 31st? That's the worst day to have them.
It's the worst. And I thought when they first did it, and it got terrible ratings the first year they did it, I thought they immediately said they were going to fix that, and because the next one is until like the 10th or 11th every year.
I know, if only there was only some kind of governing body of college athletics that could handle such things, but we don't have one. And so we have to live with the consequences. Awful. Just awful.
Mark Garrity said he didn't realize I was anti-New Year's Eve. Yeah, there's a lot you don't know about me, Mark. That's all I have to say. New Year's Eve is the dumbest holiday. It's the dumbest because also everyone's like, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? Nothing. I'm going to have no pants on, and I'm going to be drinking, ideally in my basement, or my favorite New Year's Eves have been sitting on a couch with my wife making fun of the celebrities that debase themselves to be on these New Year's Eve shows, and then going to sleep. That's a good New Year's Eve. I've skipped over some things but the Boiled Sports Bowl, Dylan suggested. Don't think I haven't thought about it, Dylan. It seems like anybody can get a bowl game. So
that's right. Cheez-Its has multiple. Because of the Citrus Bowl that Purdue is playing in, which we still have an hour and 4 minutes into this. We haven't even mentioned the Citrus Bowl once.
We got like 3 months. The
And we're gonna
freaking
have
bowl
podcasts.
game is
See, that's the other.
closer to the spring game, I think, than it was to the Penn State game.
Which is
How about that?
also why I don't blame any. If everybody, in Twitter, we had these questions about players opting out and stuff like that. Here are two easy ways to get fewer players to opt out of bowl games. Make it the week after, or pay them.
Like next
Like,
weekend?
make it next weekend. What are we doing? What are we doing next weekend?
I agree.
Watching the Colts or the Giants?
I agree.
No,
You could have your
neither.
playoff games. You could have your bowl games the next week or two, and then you could have your playoffs like leading into Christmas, and then you're not competing because they're actually competing with the end of the NFL and the beginning of the NFL playoffs. And I have said this before, as much as I love college football, by the time we get to January 11th or whatever it is, I'm like, football's been it's over. Like I just we went to a game on September 2nd.
Yeah.
I just why do you have this great regular season where every Saturday is so much fun, and then you just fizzle it out with this like ending
Smother
now
it to
and
death.
then just deflate
Smother
for the
it
next
to
6
death.
weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. So the bowl games that don't matter, that are outside of the playoff, either stagger them in terms of kind of importance. So like Citrus Bowl, which by the way is a real accomplishment. It's the best bowl outside of New Year's Six. Like again, put that in another feather in Jeff Brom's cap that he got Purdue to. That would be on like one of the last meaningless bowl weekends, maybe the first playoff weekend, right? It's the noon opener to that first playoff weekend, but everything kind of building up to that, your Saturdays are still full because you're packing Saturdays full, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays full of those other bowl games.
How about those non
and paying the players to play in them?
How about those education and a goodie bag is their payment, Anish?
Pat on the back.
Why not? I got an idea. You were just saying it's one of the better non-playoff bowl games. How about an NIT for all the other bowl games? Everybody who doesn't make the playoff plays a mini tournament. Boom.
Mini tournament, NIT. Boom.
And
you think we're not watching? You think we're not betting on the FCS playoffs when all of this thing happens? Yes, of course we're going to bet on it. Of course we're going to watch the tournament. You put any bracket in front of us, NIT idiot Americans.
You've got an NIT. Listen. You've got an NIT bracket where Purdue's in, LSU's in, right?
Yeah.
And then you put the FCS champ in there.
Oh, yeah. Now we're talking.
Free ideas for everybody. Free ideas for you.
See, this is...
All of a sudden, North Dakota State is laying waste to Brian Kelly or something. Oh, my gracious. Feed me. The risk there is that it's suddenly more interesting than the actual playoff.
Well, but that's ratings.
Suddenly the bowls are great.
Yeah, bowl games are bad. I think that everybody's like, why are these players like not opting in? You know why they're opting out of these bowls? Because they suck. They're bad and they're terrible. They're good vacation opportunities for us, and they're basically glorified spring games. Like, because we're treating them like they used to be treated 15, 20 years ago. Like the NCAA and everybody, college football has to modernize and change the schedule, change the calendar, adapt it to, tournaments and fun ideas like this. The NBA has a play-in tournament now. I mean, like adapt or die, right? And bowl games are where you go to die. Like that's it. So you got to make it more fun. And you got to pay the players to play in them.
We have a comment you must put up on the board. South Haven Boiler.
Of course. I knew that the minute you start stroking J Money's ego, he's going to ask you to put... I'm starting to think J Money is the brains of this operation. Great ideas. You should have seen him struggle to record Boiler Down, the least tech savvy of the three of us, a quick cast, and he did so successfully. It was a good quick cast. You should subscribe to it on YouTube with the wrong microphone.
Oh, whatever. Nobody needs to know. Could they hear me? That's all that matters.
You should subscribe to our YouTube and rate us and whatever. Who cares?
And at an hour and 9 minutes in, thank you to our sponsors.
Who are our sponsors, J Money?
Martin Vintage. Great. It's Christmas time. It's holiday season. It's December.
Get them in.
You will get stuff for your favorite boiler there. And even, you know what? Even if they don't like Purdue, get them a Martin Vintage shirt. They won't be able to deny how comfortable it is.
J Money and Boiler Dowd have young ones. And if you want the easiest way, if you're buying a gift for one of the young people in your life that you love and you want to poison them with what it is that we have been poisoned with, the easiest way to do so is with a very soft Martin Vintage sweatshirt. Or do they sell pants now? No, it's the long sleeves. They just have the long sleeves.
It's
Just buy
your
the
kind of
Martin
place.
Vintage
No
one.
pants, just comfortable shirts.
That's right.
It's
That's right. That's the tagline. I have it tattooed on my back. Yeah.
pants optional. Enter
That's
Boiled at checkout for 15% off. And then our other friends are at AJ's on Vine Street in West Lafayette. Man,
Imagine you're
comfort
going to
food.
see a game at Mackey Arena. Where would you go? Where for would you go to eat? You go to AJ's. You get a
Hell yeah.
burger. You get a
Hell
pint.
yeah.
You watch some games beforehand. I'm sure Family Feud will be on one channel because they got a million TVs. The Game Show Network will be on.
Just like
It's
when you were
great.
at the Purdue game on the patio and they had on Law and
Law
Order,
and
I think.
Order.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. I got
Yeah,
a call
Jeff Brohm.
today.
Jeff Brohm can leave for Louisville, but only big time programs have Law and Order on the TVs
That
in the
patio,
concourse.
man, I am ready to. I would like to be there to press the dynamite thing down, the plunger. That is. I know that's not what they're doing, everyone. So don't correct me. I know they're not blowing it up. But man, that was an underwhelming. And then you walk down in front of all the fans in the visitor section and have to go down a little set of steps and across a little thing and then up steps. And then you have to show somebody a ticket who doesn't really care if you have it or not. And then you go in and, there's more beer tents. And you can't see the game and you can't see the scoreboard. It's really a nice setup, I have to say. Morgantown was as underwhelming. It was appropriate for what we called it, Morgantown.
That's right.
Rest in peace. We've been getting a lot of pressure to talk about candidates, but I think we're going to hold off on that, not just to mess with you guys, but also because
we're gonna have a podcast if Jeff Brohm leaves for Purdue.
Content.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
yeah.
We didn't really talk about Purdue basketball, but that's because that belongs more on the basketball beat, which will be coming back twice a week for 4 months. Nish and right. Michael will get on and talk about Purdue basketball. If only the Purdue basketball program was worthy of talking about.
Here's 3 things to talk about with the Purdue basketball program. One, Zach Edey is just amazing. Like his poise, like he's just unflappable. And now, he's a defensive stopper. I know that there are people out there that say he's just tall and not skilled, but they also said that about Shaq. And they were morons then, and they're morons now. Oh, Shaq is just big.
The first comparison to Shaq has been made.
You fool. That tells me you never watched Shaq. Are you kidding me? That man was just big. You know how many big guys there have been there?
Is one of your 3 things going to be Caleb First as the elf?
No, go ahead. It's really good.
Because someone just in the comments just said, Coach Painter, I know him. Yes, that's
tremendous.
So far, they've released 2, which is exciting. There might be. I would think there might be one more in the can.
And then they've got the posters.
Oh, it's really good. And you're giving out Purdue elf hats at the game.
It's real good.
Well done by Purdue's creative group.
Tremendous.
It's they're letting the fun stuff out, and that's what's really fun. When you have a creative team that is fun and clever, and then you've got bosses who say, "Yeah, okay, do that silly thing." Approach the team and see if they're willing to do it. And of course,
because Painter is like,
yes, that sounds great. Of course, I will do that.
Painter, what does Painter care?
Well, I'm Caleb First, and he's good.
He's a sport. He's a real sport about it. Braden Smith is incredible. He's fearless, and he's the kind of guy that we are going to want in the tournament, right? And the kind of guy that you're going to want in the tournament that isn't immediately going to leave. So, like, Jaden was that guy, but there was no way that he was staying after he became that guy.
These guys, there's no way they're leaving.
For Braden, he's probably going to be a 3-year player at least, right? Like we're probably looking that, and that brings me. So again, we talked about like instant impact point guards. We put him in, the combo guards like Chris Kramer is the obvious comparison, but for some reason, but to me, we talked about Lujak, as well, like massive athlete. To me, like in terms of the role he fills, it's like PJ Thompson, which is that team that PJ walked into. PJ was a late commit, kind of like Braden, an overlooked commit. He walked into a team without a starting point guard and just brought instant stability to that position. And everybody around him was great, but he just brought instant stability to that. Now, Braden is bringing more than PJ did. But it's just like, it's so great. And it was so good to see that offseason, like a lot of the offseason hype that was built up over Braden. Like, you're seeing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. My biggest surprise so far, it's not even close. I was expecting Fletcher Lawyer to be like in the Ryan Smith or the Ryan Klein mold again for some reason. You know who he is? You know who his closest comparison is? And you know more than anybody, I don't make this comparison lightly. His closest comparison is Etwan Moore. Like, what? I know that he was a top 100 recruit, but like Fletcher Lawyer is putting up Etwan Moore freshman year numbers.
He looks so smooth. He looks so smooth.
That's it. It's smooth off the dribble. He's unflappable. Yeah. Braden isn't the guy that breaks traps. Braden, like Fletcher Lawyer, makes himself available, and Braden and Fletcher breaks the trap, like the full court trap. It's like it's not just pump faking, taking one dribble in and shooting a 18-foot jumper. It's getting all the way to the hoop and reverse layup. Like, a freshman shouldn't be able to do this. Like, a freshman that looks like him shouldn't be able to do this. What are we doing here? How is he all of a sudden Etwan Moore? That's so, it's incredible. So those are my 3 thoughts about Purdue basketball. That's it. All you got is 3 right now.
Boiler Dad asks us, will Paint walk through the door that the media is holding open for him? I assume you're talking about the media love that he's getting. I think he plays the media great. I think his interviews are always a thoughtful comment when he's interviewed at halftime or post game. We've talked about this before. We're very lucky. These guys represent Purdue so well. And Painter likes what he's doing. He's so comfortable, and not comfortable in a bad way, right? Not comfortable in the like, well, nobody get rid of me. Like, I look at Huggins and I'm like, that guy's pretty comfortable. Farron's pretty comfortable. Not bad, but they're still winning. But I think Painter, he's comfortable in his own skin, right? I think he went through that period we all talked about where he's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to make some concessions here and bring in some guys that I might not have ordinarily brought in. And then he was like, well, that didn't work at all. I'm never doing that again. Like, and look what's happened here. Look what kind of a sage, graying, portly coach he's become. And I think the media loves him. I think they're going to continue to love him. I think, man, they would love nothing more than to see him go to the Final Four. The last couple of years has shown, because you still have people, like Andy Katz said the other day, they should have been in the Final Four last year. You don't usually hear media people saying that, because most of the time it's like, well, they didn't get there, they lost. So,
and you usually see that about programs like Duke, about programs like Kentucky, Kansas, if they don't make it, like if they fall short, right? You don't hear that about programs like Purdue. You don't hear that, but this is the Gonzaga and Villanova and that kind of like new blue blood kind of tier. And all you're waiting for, like all the media was doing was waiting for, Jay Wright to win a title, right?
Yes.
To make a Final Four and win.
Jay Wright's a great comp, and you've made it before that it took Jay Wright a long time to break through, right? Like, I think that's a great comp, and I would love it if he followed that path. A couple national titles, and then out the door, and have someone else on this. Painter's what, 52, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
He's got at least 5 years of high energy left, maybe 10. You look at some of these guys who are coaching in their 70s. I don't think Matt Painter's going to be here till he's 75.
He's too smart for that. He's too smart and too emotionally balanced for that. Like, the people that hold on like that are like they've got a hole.
Can you imagine Matt Painter doing analysis?
Painter just has a stomach that can't be filled. It's fine. But
can you imagine Matt Painter doing basketball analysis, though?
Dude, he'd be awesome
like Bruce Weber is right now.
2 or 3 national titles under his belt, and all of a sudden he's the sage, wise Matt Painter. He's Jay Wright. He's Jay Wright. It took him to 2 title games, won 1 in spectacular or took him to 3, 1, 2. One of them in buzzer-beating historical fashion. Yeah, sure, I'll take that. I told you, if Purdue basketball wins a title, just shut the athletic program down. This is what I'm here for.
You don't have to worry about that because the campus will be burned down. We've talked about this. I was on campus when the women won the national title, and people tried to burn the campus down. That was for the women winning it.
Can
So
I tell you something? I was
yes,
flipping channels, and the Notre Dame women were playing UConn. This is a great matchup, top 10 matchup or whatever. Oh, it just feels so dirty to root unabashedly for Notre Dame
because of
and just hate the
Mrs.
other
Ivy.
coach. Oh, because of Neil and because it's Gino on the other side, and it's
Well,
just
about I have made
it's
no
a
secret of the
disaster.
fact that Neil Ivy is
It's a disaster.
awesome and beautiful and younger than us, which is also wonderful for your
Yeah, she
soul
is.
to see
Yeah,
that
I
she's younger
guess.
than us and her son is in the NBA. Who, by the way, wore a Michigan
So,
jersey
s-
into
uh,
the game today because he clearly lost a bet.
he lost a bet for the Big Ten title. Yeah.
Motor City Boiler, no, I was not at Hillenbrand. I lived south of campus, and I could hear the din from my apartment on Sheets Street. Look up Sheets. It's south of Stewart Center by a couple blocks. I could hear the commotion in front of Carrie. I'm not exaggerating. I could hear it. And I went out to say, I was like, what is that noise? I'm going to go find out. And then, man, that was something. The pile of stuff being burned in the middle of the road.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just it's hey,
Oh,
the chat, settle down,
yeah. Everybody
chat.
just
We're talking about Neil. Settle down,
it's
take a
Bull
breath.
Sports After Dark. One other comment on women's sports. Did you see that Purdue women bailed out of that bullshit Las Vegas tournament?
Oh my gosh. I loved Greg
Good for
McManus
them.
tweeted out a thing that was like, the way to change a thing is just to opt out of it until you force them to change, until you realize that you are the desired quantity.
But
You don't have to
not
bend
many
to them.
programs do that, man. To be
But
able to say they and A&M obviously got on the phone and
yep.
said, you know what,
No,
screw
this sucks.
this. Let's
They were
play at
playing
College Station.
they were playing in ballrooms. They were playing in humid ballrooms that
But not
were
in a
like,
good ballroom. There was no
oh,
seating. There was where people were sitting on like dining room chairs. That was like
and
if you don't want to host it, don't host it. That's fine.
the back wall was like right behind. It was like a bad church basketball hoop. You know what I mean? Where like the back
Right.
wall is like right there, and you're gonna die if you take a fast
Right.
break. You're gonna die. That's it.
Right. It's like those football bowl games in the baseball stadiums where it's like, well, we can't run through the end zone at this end. So
Speaking of Scott Satterfield, they're playing at Fenway. They're playing Cincy. Louisville and Cincy are playing at Fenway, and they have to share a sideline.
they did that
So
at
he doesn't even
Wrigley.
have to switch sidelines. He can
You
just
could
he
just
just
stand
walks
right
up and
between
down.
them in that little
Exactly.
coach's. Well, somebody put a great tweet up. They said the Fenway Bowl was started in 2020 and canceled because of COVID. In 2021, it was canceled because of COVID. 2022, the coach is going
Just
from one
bounce.
team to the other. So it's been not exactly the best bowl game setup. But yeah, Satterfield has to be there and get interviewed. I remember Hazel was interviewed during Purdue getting shellacked by Oklahoma State. Remember the Heart of Dallas Bowl?
Yeah.
Hazel was interviewed there and was probably in that booth like, oh, I'm gonna fix this right up. Wait till I get my system in here. These guys won't be getting their ass kicked by Oklahoma State anymore. They'll be getting their ass kicked by Miami of Ohio or whoever the hell else.
Yeah, that's
to.
right. Yeah,
Oof.
that's right. Oh, but
Bad times, man.
it's so
Bad
good.
times.
This is how you change a thing. And again, you talk about being proud of the athletics programs making you proud and like representing you well. That also it like part of that is also like standing up and doing the right thing and being empowered to do so by an athletic department and
Yeah.
trusting the athletic department is fighting the fights that
That's another great point. You can't do
your
that
ways
without the AD saying, yeah, do that.
yeah, go ahead. Or without even knowing, like you can do that without a conversation with Bavinsky if you know that he's going to have your
Got
back no matter what.
Absolutely.
Right?
But not every school has that.
Nope.
Not every.
Nope.
So Purdue Athletics in a really good place. And
at least for another day.
If Brohm goes, we will pull out the list, and it does exist. Anish has it. You can sort it by many different ways.
Of course.
It's been an hour and 24 minutes. I think that's long enough.
We had enough things to talk about, I think, yes.
Yeah, it turned out we had enough. That's good.
Yeah,
Thanks again to our sponsors, Martin Vintage and AJ's. And we'll be back with another Handsome Hour or Basketball Beat. You never know. Michael may make a guest appearance one of these times.
maybe maybe Brohm will just stay and it'll make it irrelevant. We'll just move on to basketball season. We won't even
Absolutely.
address the
We
end of
can do
football
that.
season because we already addressed it here. Going to the Citrus Bowl. Purdue's going to beat LSU. We're not sure who the coach or the players are going to be, and
Brian
nothing
Kelly.
bad has ever. Well,
Oh, you mean
yeah,
at Purdue? Yes.
yeah, of Purdue, yes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's totally fine. We'll see you all in Orlando. Right? This is going to be the last thing we talk about until then. It's fine.
That's it for football. Enjoy yourself.
That's it for football.
I love you guys. Good night.